Good evening, and welcome to Direct Impact Broadcasting, the station of growth and transformation. Affiliate of Creative Broadcasting presents Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson, with your host, Tawana Wilson, as she welcomes her guest to the studio.
Welcome to Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson. I am your host, Tawana Wilson. A little bit about myself. I am your award-winning leadership maven, medical laboratory sciences by background, best-selling author, owner-in-chief leadership consultant at Trendy Elite Coaching and Consulting Services, executive director of the John Maxwell team, Maxwell DIS certified consultant, Send Out Cards referral partner, and co-owner of Direct Impact Broadcasting Radio TV Network. Today is the part 2 of our very special show. We have another amazing author from the Leadership Tidbits Project. So before we jump into bringing our guests on, I do have a few announcements. I am booking guests for the 2020 season. So if you are interested in being a guest on this podcast, please go out to www.podcast.coachtwilson to submit your interest. We would love to have you on the show and talk about your leadership journey. All of my leadership strengths assessments are on sale at www.trendylellc.com. To get ongoing leadership tips and personal development support, I encourage you to join my leadership tribe, the Trendy Elite Leadership Tribe, at www.trendyleliteleadershiptribe.com. Special thanks to my media mentors, Miss Ashley Little and Miss Kimberly McLemore of Talk Radio and TV Network LLP. So now let's go ahead and jump in and bring on one of the co-authors from the Leadership Tidbits bestseller, Dr. Melissa Brunson. Dr. Melissa, how are you doing this evening?
I'm actually doing really fantastic. How about you?
I am doing well. I am so excited to have you on the show this evening. I'm excited to talk about leadership and your chapter in the book. You had an awesome chapter that I know the readers will definitely be inspired by. So let's jump right into it and talk a little bit about your chapter. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
All right. So hello, listeners. I'm glad to talk about myself a little bit, which is something I rarely do. So this is a great opportunity to kind of share some of my insight and my excitement a little bit about what we're doing in leadership around this book, and as well as a little bit about my background. So I am originally from Jersey City, New Jersey, where I was born and bred, and went to college also in New Jersey. I went to Montclair State. I actually majored in sociology. I would say in the late 90s, I eventually relocated to Maryland and worked in my field for a short time, and then realized that, one of the cornerstones to successful lives for any child in their futures would be in education. So I made a shift over to education, and I started out teaching special education in one of the urban cities in the state of Maryland. And enjoyed that for a while. And eventually I went from teaching in that particular city to a larger, actually the largest urban county, which is Montgomery County in Maryland. So I started teaching there, and then eventually between teaching in both places, I actually took some coursework and got a master's in educational leadership through the College of Notre Dame, and really enjoyed that, and thought of being a school-based administrator at the time. So once I had made the shift over to Montgomery County, I was pretty ready. I just had to spend a couple of years there to get to learn the system, teach, and sort of prove myself worthy of that next level and that next step. And so I actually went from being a teacher to being an assistant principal at one of the elementary schools. And shortly thereafter, like after about 2.5 years, I eventually became the principal of one of the schools in Montgomery County. And I did that for almost 12 years. Um, and then for the last year and this year, I I made another transition, and that is to work in our central office in the Office of Special Education. So now I'm serving as a special education supervisor of nearly 70 schools in my county. And that
Wow.
was
Wow.
yeah.
That is a huge role, and it sounds
hmm
very exciting.
It is.
So,
It is very exciting.
So, Dr. Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about, since you have been in the school system for some time and, served in both the school and now as an administrator, I'm sure there's some challenges that you all face just because, times are changing. So can you talk about a little bit about the challenges from the aspect of how myself and the other listeners as community volunteers could be of support so that we are a little bit more knowledgeable about what our teachers and administrators need.
Okay. Well, this is I guess this is about my 22nd, almost 23rd year in education. So I've had the opportunity in 2 decades plus to see how it has transitioned so much. And so I remember, like, when I first started, there was a big focus on reading, making sure everybody were proficient readers, and it started early on. And I know that's a continuous push that we push. Particularly in our earlier grades, we're always wanting to make sure we consolidate, how children are able to read, not just to read the material, be able to decode and just be a reader, but we also are working very hard at making sure they're able to comprehend at the early ages. And so that is also a challenge because, not all students get the opportunity to be in preschool programs, although in our state they've made it available for pretty much all students to have that access to pre-K programs so that when they get into kindergarten and they flow through first and second grade, they're learning their skills to be strong readers. And so that early intervention is always important, but you got a challenge. And so I ask community members to do what they can do to promote those early foundational skills in reading, particularly because we all know that if students don't really get that firm grip and understanding, especially in elementary school, as they matriculate through the intermediate grades of elementary, through middle school to high school and so forth, that becomes a challenge and certainly a barrier to their success. So we certainly need help with that. And then I noticed that, one of the things that we did well was teach our teachers how to teach reading and become very strong teachers of English language arts. But one thing that can get easily neglected in our teacher preparation programs is around math. And so we know, and we've learned through research that, students have to really be able to be creative, complex thinkers and problem solvers. And it does require students to really understand, to be able to comprehend, to apply, to reason, and be able to engage in math. And so that's an area that we even profess, we know that we didn't spend a whole lot of time on that. And so right now, a lot of our county districts across the nation, we're really focusing a lot of our attention on math and making sure that students have all of those nuggets to be creative problem solvers. I mean, there are problems that we don't see in our future that we have to get them to be flexible thinkers through math. And so if we do that now and we build those structures early, then we know that they'll be strong as they, again, matriculate through secondary school and then eventually to college. And so I know that there's been a lot of talk around, science, technology, engineering, math, and the arts. And so we're trying to create opportunities for students to get to that level where they're strong enough to take on those type of careers, those base careers, science, technology, engineering, math, and of course the arts. And so we know that coming together, we have to make sure that math is also strong for our students so that they can take on these careers and solve those problems that we don't see for the future. So again, you have to be a strong reader, and again, you have to be a strong writer as well, and also a problem solver and a thinker that we get through math. And combined, we really create an educational foundation for our students that will lead them toward success and to also support our communities in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm so happy you talked about reading. I know recently I was talking to one of my cousin who works in the schools, and we were just talking about, how things are a little bit different today and how the reading skills are a little bit lacking even in the higher grades. And so, it's important for us, as you said, for us to help our kids, especially when they're younger, with their reading skills and writing skills. Me being in healthcare, I can tell you that, those are critical, reading, writing, and math. If you can do those things, you might be okay, being in healthcare and a STEM-related career. So listeners out there, reading is important. I know that we have technology, and I know that we have our phones and we have the internet, but you cannot get away from the basics, the foundation of being able to read, write, and do math.
So, Coach T, one other thing I'd like to add to that also in terms of challenge in the schools that, while we are really promoting the academic side, we have to really focus on the whole child. So I have to add one piece to that, if you don't mind, because I think it's important for listeners and community members who are listening in to really understand the social emotional side of learning. Yeah, so one of the things that we're really focusing on is really looking at, how children are able to socialize and communicate and also problem solve, not just the technical side, the academic side, but to also be able to problem solve with their friends and make friends and long-lasting relationships. And what does that mean? We're trying to build empathy in children. We're trying to show them that when we do make mistakes in our socializing, that there are opportunities for us to restore those relationships. And so one of the biggest pushes in education is around restorative practices. I don't know if the listeners are familiar with it, but sometimes, student interactions aren't always the most welcomed interactions between students. And so sometimes like an incident may occur where, sometimes, it's as simple as a fight, and maybe we need to, find out what that root cause is, and not only find that piece out, but the person that was the victim in all of this, how do we restore them and make them feel like they're safe in school? So, there's a big push around that social emotional. Obviously, at schools, we have to make sure that they're safe, and we have to give kids the tools and the strategies and even the coping strategies to kind of deal with some of the things that might impact them. We have kids that, again, if we don't really build those foundations, the work gets harder and tougher. And so, some of the students have low tolerance and they are highly frustrated, whether it's at school or, maybe something's happening in their personal lives that they're frustrated with. And so we have to look at the whole child and really address that side of kids, again, because they are members of society. And we know that together, those two pieces, academic and the social emotional side, working in tandem will obviously make them good citizens in our community.
Absolutely, absolutely. We definitely need to be looking at our kids holistically, looking at all of that. So I'm happy that you make sure that you made the listeners, understand that, because that is critical for their productivity going forward. Dr. Melissa, leaders come from all walks of life with vastly different backgrounds, strengths, qualities, and experience. what strengths and qualities do you feel have been important for you to thrive as a leader in the world of education, especially when you're working with your colleagues and our students?
That's a very good question. And so the first thing that comes to mind is it's actually a disposition. You have to have a disposition that allows yourself to be open and to be able to be a very good listener. And so, there are a lot of key messages or situations that you have to listen to. And so you have to be able to kind of understand where the perspectives are all coming from. So that's, to me, like one of the most important pieces. And then followed by that would be effective communication skills. And they kind of go hand in hand. So you have to be able to, allow people that are around you, especially, in a leadership role, you're affecting so many lives, even to the point where, some people think, oh, they're just affecting the kids' lives, but they're affecting the kids' lives. They're also affecting staff lives. They're also affecting community lives because, again, a lot of our interactions are with those three factions and also, our external partners that might support us in the school. So the communication side, listening and be able to communicate back what you've heard or to help problem solve or be a part of the problem solving process. But one of the things that and this kind of relates a little bit to my book chapter, which was titled Leadership That Brings All on Board, is really looking at getting more involved, getting your stakeholders more involved in some of the decisions and the vision of your company or organization. And for me, it was more of a principle thing that I was able to sort of relate to. So getting your stakeholders who are going to be responsible for applying a lot of practice, getting their buy-in by making them a part of those decisions is highly important. Because I do feel like as a leader, we know, and I'm sure we've all had the experience, but I can tell you I did, where from a young age on up, I've had, multiple experiences being among a leader where it was sort of top down. What I said, go, this is policy and procedure. I didn't have a voice. And that was very challenging. And because, here I am holding in a whole lot of information and insight that I would love to share my ideas. And when people treat you that way, it can be very challenging. You may not feel wanted. You don't feel very valued. And so the goal for a leader, and I think that's something that I've honed over time, is to really be collaborative and inclusive and include those stakeholders who are going to be responsible. So I imagine, again, if we have listeners who are community members, educators, or have worked with the schools, I'm sure they would and have loved if they've had the experience of being connected with the school to really understand, exactly what is entailed in the school, what we need from them to make improvements in our school community. So I would say, generally speaking, like I said, interpersonal communication, effective problem solvers, and be able to bring in all stakeholders, especially when there are big decisions that need to be made that affects all of them and they have to apply it. You certainly want to, I feel like those traits are definitely necessary for leadership.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I'm happy you started talking about your chapter. I really, really, really loved your chapter. I did. I really loved your chapter, Leadership That Brings All on Board, because it relates to every industry. It doesn't matter if you're in education, if you're in healthcare, if you're in manufacturing, because there's so many times that decisions are made and then the team that's doing the work has no clue about why they're doing what they're doing. And so it's important, as you said, that, make the environment inclusive. Make sure that your team is aware of those big decisions, those critical decisions that affect them and what they do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, as we had embarked on the journey of Leadership Tidbits, our whole goal with this is to have practical tips that our emerging leaders and people can use in both their personal and professional lives. We want you to be able to readily deploy the tips that are suggested in the book, from the leader's experience, from them sharing their stories. We wanted to give you something that you could use today, And so, what did you hope the readers get from reading your chapter? Can you talk a little bit more about kind of how did you get to where you were in your chapter, and what do you hope readers will take from it?
So interesting enough, I remember very specifically when I was sort of designing the chapter, like sort of putting out the layout, and I was really focused on inclusive leadership. And even though this chapter does definitely talk about it, it sort of evolves in more of what are some of those practical opportunities which you can actually have more inclusive leadership. So, one of the things that I cited in the book was around the way Disney does their onboarding process. And what I love about it is, you want people in your industry to really understand what your core values of your organization are. Some things that, definitely won't leave the organization. These are things that we believe in, whether it's, education, respect, whatever those core values are. And so as you're going through an onboarding process, it allows the employee to really think deeply, is this an organization I want to be a part of? I mean, I'm excited, or am I, I'm not really sure. One of the things that comes up a lot of times when I'm working, let's say I'm hiring like a teacher for my school, I always want to know what do they I want to know from them, what do they consider high expectations? And I'm also relaying to them what is high expectations for us as a school. The whole idea around equity, making sure everyone gets what they need. And so that was one piece of it. So I'm always listening very carefully that their core values sort of connect to the core values to our organization. But I do like the idea of onboarding because it lets them know up front what you're getting yourself into, aside from having applied for the position. But now I'm telling you very specifically what our core values are, and you can make a decision whether you want to stay or you want to go, or you want to shift gears or do something different. But it allows the employee to see if are my personal core values aligned with this organization. And so I did throw that in the chapter because I thought that was a very good strategy. I actually facilitated a lot of that in my county. And so once you get past that piece of it, you want to, now that they have essentially brought into the organization because it matches their core values. One of the you want to go to the next level by involving them in some of the shared leadership opportunities that you have in your school, whether it's serving on the leadership team. And again, this is school, but again, if you have a core group or executive leadership that you have in your organization, you can certainly connect that as well to what I'm saying at the school level. But some of the question prompts that I brought up was I related to how your core values align with the values of the organization. And so I did want my readers to walk away with, as they are thinking about their core values, maybe they are connecting it with the organization's values, or vice versa. If you're the owner, leader, CEO of an organization, do you have values that are completely spelled out that the employees can see, understand, and be able to connect with those values? So I thought that was one of the things that I really wanted them to walk away with, and to also understand that, you have to walk in with a plan, and you got to have a process in place. And it's great to have that, but you have to have the involvement of stakeholders. So the additional questioning prompts is, how do your employees contribute to the decision making in your organization? So I wanted leaders to be thinking about, are you allowing them the opportunity to feel connected to the organization? Are you getting enough buy-in? Because it's one thing to have compliance, because people, listen, let's say the bottom line is we have bills to pay. And so we might be compliant enough to get a check, right? But
right.
You want someone who's fully committed, because essentially, your work kind of becomes a part of your life. It is a part of your life. It's a lot of time well spent in a week, right? Um,
Right.
yeah, so you definitely want to kind of check yourself. And also, you want to make sure that your employees are with you, because when they have buy-in, you go from commitment. I'm sorry, from compliance to commitment, and that's commitment and dedication to the organization, and that's what you want to have happen in the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, how can mentorship or, mentoring play a part of this being successful in the environment?
Well, one of the things that I learned a lot over the years is opportunities for you to be reflective, and it's don't be afraid to share what you don't know, especially with people who are leaders within your organization or similar to your organization. Or within, you'll be surprised. People are willing to assist and support you and help you. One of the things that around mentorship and networking. I mean, they kind of somewhat go hand in hand, but it's really nice to have someone who has been in your role or in your position for a while and kind of understand the lay of the land, whether it's directly in the district you work in or in the organization you work in. But even people that are outsiders, that are leaders, can understand some of the aspects of leadership that can definitely be relatable to what you do. So you certainly want to have that person. You want to keep them close to you and be able to hear what they have to say. Sometimes, we can leaders, we get a lot thrown at us. I mean, a whole lot, and very quickly. And sometimes, we don't even have time to stop and think. And sometimes, we don't want to fall into the trap of making assumptions about anything. So sometimes if you could just get to your mentor or a critical friend who understands leadership to share things with, it can give you really great feedback. Can teach you how to navigate the system that you work for, the organization that you work for. So, and also they also sometimes promote you. I mean, they may share, getting to know you very well. They're able to share, um, you know, hey, I know this is an opportunity. I have a connection with that person. So maybe, if I share, what I know about you, again, that mentorship relationship can drive that. And you'll be surprised that sometimes it opens doors for opportunity. Networking helps because some people don't really know where they can find their mentors. So, belonging to organizations that are connected to your work, being able to like the National Education Association is very popular, but there are other groups like AERA and other groups in education, but in other industries, and I'm sure Coach T, there's industries organizations that are connected to what you do, and they have conferences. And so you go to those conferences, you start the networking there. Again, those are additional opportunities to pull in mentors or to see what other people are doing that'll inspire you, and you can learn from them. And so, absolutely, my whole life is built around mentoring, and sometimes mentors change. You keep mentors. Some people change. Some people enter into your life, and you just have to be open to it. But don't be afraid to, get a mentor and be able to, share what you're dealing with. Because, like I said, leadership is very complex. It comes at you very quickly. Sometimes something new happens. Actually, all the time, something new happens that you may not have ever experienced, and you're like, okay, I have an idea of how I can approach this, but I need insight from someone in this field who knows what they're doing and can help me. And leaders, good leaders, they're servant leaders. I mean, good leaders will serve you. They really good ones have absolutely no issue, no problem with sharing their leadership experience. And so, part of this whole leadership tidbit, and part of me even being on this radio show right now is to kind of share with the listeners my experiences and to hopefully hope that you all will learn from it as well.
Yes, yes. It's interesting that you say that because you're right. I mean, who wouldn't want to lessen their learning curve from getting that information from mentors. I know I've been impacted by mentors, and if it wasn't for some of my mentors, I wouldn't be where I am today. I mean, I have mentors in my professional life, in my personal life, and just soaking up all of their wisdom and expertise, because in today's workplace, there are multiple generations working. And you're right, leadership is very complex, and having to, try to maneuver people can be difficult. So I definitely try to rely on my mentors. What do you think about this? How should I approach this situation? I'm thinking about this kind of role. What experience do I need? And so the power of a mentor is priceless.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
It it truly is. And I know that, throughout the book, in various chapters, our other contributing authors are talking about mentoring and mentorship, and that power and that value of it is, again, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, that power of mentoring is priceless. So listeners, as you hear from the various leaders who've been on this show, that's always an underlying theme, is that, most of them will say they wouldn't have gotten to where they are today without the power and the value and the time that their mentors have placed in their life.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Brunson, what you speak out loud is what you give life to. So I know that, there were positive affirmations and quotes and things mentioned throughout the book. And you had a great positive affirmation. Do you want to tell listeners a little bit about affirmation as it relates to your chapter, and just quotes that you tend to live by that drive your leadership?
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say, as a woman who, and again, I've had my own personal life lessons, having been, a mom of a son who is now 26, and at one point in my life I was single. And you would think that after I gave that big opening about my career, like, how in the world could she have ever made through, even at a certain point in her life when she was single with her child? And that was for a couple of years. And, I just want to say that, I was very open. I'm pretty honest, and I'm a caring woman, but I'm also strong. And, there have been moments, obviously, of weakness that built my confidence. And so I absolutely allowed those opportunities to enter into my life. And I take it like a sport, to overcome those challenges. And I know that has made me stronger over life. But my one of the quotes that come to mind, and again, I'm just taking this off the top of my head, is "This too shall pass." Um, like I said, and you just, kind of backed me up on this, that, when you're managing individuals and you are managing, and you're dealing with all types of leaders in your midst, as well as people who will work for you, and, middle managers and so forth. And so, there are always some kind of challenge that will come, and you can't even avoid it. But when it comes, it's really great to take it like a sport. And even though it's difficult and hard and challenging, and sometimes, you feel nervous about certain aspects of it, just know that it'll pass. But when it passes, you have learned so much about yourself and those around you. You become an experienced individual when you're dealing with that. I know one thing that, again, in my field, it is forever changing. And so just when you get used to something, it changes. We find out some new thing that will help our students do better educationally and, again, holistically. So even that social emotional piece. So just when you got used to, you got to switch gears, and now you have to learn something new and build skill around that. But you also have to be able to communicate it to others who may not understand. And again, you have to deal with the change process. So it can be very challenging, almost daunting at times. But as long as you keep that quote in mind that this too shall pass, and then you come out better on the other side. You come out as a stronger, more knowledgeable leader. You are applying pedagogical as well as practical skills to the work. People see you as, wow, you really overcame that. But was it something that difficult in the end? What did you learn from it? So, I mean, I would say those are like my main ones. I have many other quotes. I'm actually I was a quote person, and I would share quotes with my staff as they were, working along the way. I would send them quotes around, anything that would support their success professionally, but also personally, because they have to take care of self, if they're going to be able to put out good output at work. So, I guess I can end with that piece of it.
Yes, and I'm happy you talked about the self piece because we are in a time where we're asked to do so much. We're asked to do a lot. We're in our careers, be our best in our careers, be great role models, great parents, and it is so easy to get stretched thin. So, what kind of advice or tips would you share with the listeners who may be struggling to find that balance? They want to have that balance and be a great leader, but they still want to have, that peace. So, what tips would you give that maybe, work for you?
Well, that's a very good question because a lot of my mentors have always said, take care of yourself. And I used to always wonder what that means. Like, what does that mean for me versus another individual? So I'm going to tell you what I do to take care of me. One of the things that, I'm a firm believer. I'm a Christian and I read my Bible and I read a lot of books that are relating to God and Jesus Christ. And that's just me. So my belief in that has really helped me center myself and really recognize why I'm truly here to do the work that I do. So that's one of them. I really do surround myself with very good people and I spend time with them, whether it's my family or my close friends or my sorority organization that I spend time with. And so to me, they actually, when I think my bucket is empty, they actually help fill it with good conversation and good things that we do together. Another thing that I do absolutely is, and I do take a really big annual trip with a group of friends that we get along very well, and it's a lot of couples mainly, but we take really great trips. Like we save our money, we take a very good trip, and it's something to look forward to. And I make it a point also again to fill my bucket, to stay in touch with my child, who's 26. He's older now, and they kind of get into their own world, but it absolutely fills my bucket to talk to him and of course talk to my niece. But notice that all these things are things in my personal life that really help me. And when I have pockets of time, I read books for pleasure, but I also read professional books. And I will listen to a couple of podcasts. And I will, for me personally, it kind of helps me feel very focused and knowledgeable and feel like I'm a game changer in my field. So that makes me feel good. And one last thing that people don't necessarily always agree with me on this one, but I'll just tell you, technically I work Monday through Friday. I'm actually 24/7, if you must ask. Like technically, if anybody needs me, they can reach me. But I make it a point. To during the work week, especially, I will work and try not to bring too much work on the weekend, because that's my time. And I do, I try to, when I'm at church, I try to stay centered, or in certain activities, I try to stay centered. And so I put that phone on silent. And then, when it's time, the opportune time, then I open it back up and I will take calls and send emails. But like I said, not everybody 100% agrees with that. But that's just what I do, because people just kind of manage things so differently. But you have to do what works for you, what makes you feel good. I do exercise at a minimum of 3 times a week. That helps me. And that includes some yoga. And so that actually helps center me and make me feel good. Because again, when you're out in that field and you're putting on, you're really working that leadership role, you have to feel good, you have to feel strong, you have to feel capable. And so those are the things that help me in my personal life, well, my life all the way around, to help do the work in my life.
Yes, I love those. I love those. You are absolutely right. You have to do what works for you so that you can be your best for your students, for other leaders who are counting on you. I can remember being in a workshop, and it was a dream manager workshop. And the young lady presenting the class, she talked about, how we are charged with showing up each and every day. So, you're charged with, those who listen to R&B and know Beyonce, she's charged with showing up every time she gets on that stage. When we buy those tickets for $100, $200, or however much you pay, $400, $500 to $1,000, some people, you are not wanting her to have a bad day on the day that you have your ticket, right? And so, because we all are in very important roles that impact the lives of others, we have to show up each and every time we come to play ball. We log into the time clock. We show up at the school. So it's important for us to have that time for ourselves where we are rejuvenating, filling our cup, meditating if that's what you do, believing in a higher power, whoever that might be for you, exercising, taking those vacations, going on trips, having that time to unwind with family and friends. And so there's no right or wrong way, or no, everybody's balancing act is different. But what's important is that you do take that time to try to maintain that sense of self away from that sense of work. So those are awesome tips that you gave. So with leadership tidbits, for those who might have been under a rock over the past week or so, last week we achieved bestseller status. So very excited about that. Very excited about this project. Couldn't have done that without the amazing contributors that was on this project. We actually achieved, like I said, bestseller status. Number 4, new release in business leadership. Number 3, new release in business management. And we are in categories with other thought leaders such as John Maxwell and Peter Drucker and some of the other influential leaders. So very excited and very happy. And proud that our work, people are interested in it. We have great reviews out there because it's something that people can use today. And that was the whole premise of this project. We are taking applications for Leadership Tidbits 2. So if you read the book and you're like, I am very interested in being a part of this journey, or I want to be a part of the journey, we will kick off early 2020, but the application is out there at www.leadershiptidbits.com. You can go on there and apply. But we will be getting ready to kick off for Leadership Tidbits 2. You will see Leadership Tidbits 1, the various contributing authors in the various cities that they are located will have events for you to take part in, whether it be book signing events or meet and greet events. So stay tuned for those. And so as we get ready to come to a close, Dr. Melissa, what 1 or 2 tidbits would you like to leave the listeners with that they could use as they continue throughout this week?
Oh, wow. Um, we are in the holiday season, and so you definitely want to take very good care of yourself while you're thinking of others. Try not to overshop. You want to take care of those people who make a difference in your life around this time, and just enjoy yourself. If you have some holiday festivities that you're going to, kind of relax, release, take it all in, enjoy the time that you're with them. 2020 will be here before you know it. And so many things are changing around us so fast. So just, be open, take it in, and enjoy yourself.
Great advice. Absolutely great. So how it is. Sometimes we get overwhelmed and overconsumed with the holidays, and we don't take that advice. And then the new year rolls around, and here we are feeling exhausted and drained, and the new year is just starting.
That's right. Like, you like right. You're tired. Oh my goodness. So I get it. Yeah. And you know what? Another thing that I did, I'm sorry, one more thing about it, another tidbit that I did to think about going into the new year. And this is, the listeners, this is something you can consider doing. I mean, I've reconnected with people I haven't talked to in a very long time. So that's always kind of fun to do. I mean, don't be afraid to do it. Take a risk and call somebody that maybe you haven't been in contact with in a while. You'll be so surprised what you hear on the other side. Hopefully it's good. But from when I've done it every year, it's been really like, oh my God, Melissa, I'm so glad to hear from you. And that fills my bucket as well.
That is awesome advice. And that's what leaders do. Leaders reach out. You don't always wait for somebody to reconnect with you. You go ahead and you take that lead and you reconnect with them, because at the end of the day, your relationships will sustain you, which is another chapter in the book. You have to get the book to get the rest of these tidbits. So, Dr. Melissa, how can the listeners stay connected with you and follow you on your leadership journey and get an autographed copy of the book from you?
Oh, wow. I guess I need to move a little faster. So I am on Facebook. I'm Melissa A. Brunson, and you certainly can find me there. I haven't given my Twitter account, but I guess I need to get better at getting that out. So if you do log into Facebook and you find me there, at some point within the next 2 weeks, I'll have a Twitter account. And so you can certainly find me there. People have already asked for copies of the book. I certainly will be sure to. I am willing to get you that book, or you can simply go to Amazon and type in Leadership Tidbits. We'll show right up, and you can order the book that way. I'm very excited that it has the multiple versions, the Kindle as well as the paperback. And so it definitely suits two needs. And I have to tell you, one of the things about contributing to a book like this, which was a pleasant surprise for me. So we all were contributors, but, when I actually got the book and read other people's leadership tidbits, I actually learned so much from the other leaders that were part of the project. I have to tell you guys, I was like more excited beyond my chapter to read other people's chapters and their tidbits around leadership. So even as a contributing author, I'm a fan of the book myself. So anyway, I would be willing to do that. I'm still exploring how I'm going to go about selling the book, whether I'm going to set up shows, because a lot of people like to face the authors. And so I'm working on what that opportunity will look like. So just come on Facebook. I'll accept you as a friend and you'll get the information.
Awesome. So if you want to stay connected with Dr. Melissa, make sure you go ahead and look her up on Facebook, and she will keep you updated as to what events she might be doing or ways that you can connect with her so that she can provide you with a signed copy of our bestseller. So, Dr. Melissa, it has definitely been a pleasure having you on the show tonight. I was excited and happy that you participated in the project and contributed. Your chapter was very powerful and awesome, and I know that the readers will be able to relate to it and get some information that they can readily use in both their personal and professional life. So thank you so much for jumping on the show tonight and sharing with the listeners.
All right. Thank you.
Many blessings to you and continued success on your journey. So thank you again.
You're welcome. And same to you and same to the listeners as well.
Awesome. So thank you, listener audience, for tuning in to another episode of Leadership Tidbits, where we had a special show tonight. We had one of the contributing authors from the bestseller Leadership Tidbits, Dr. Melissa Brunson, where she talked about her chapter, Leadership That Brings All on Board. She gave great tips. Make sure you go and get the book to read her chapter in full detail and learn from the other mentors, the other trailblazers that are in the book. So if you like what you heard tonight and want to listen to previous shows, you can subscribe at www.podcast.coachtwilson.com. If you are thinking about starting your own podcast, radio show, or even TV show, I would love to help you. You could send me an email at dibroadcasting, that's all one word, DIBROADCASTING at TrendyEliteLLC.com. Don't forget to get Leadership Tidbits. Again, it's in paperback, it's on the Kindle version, so it will make a good gift during this holiday season. And again, if you are interested in being a part of Volume 2, Leadership Tidbits 2, you can go on and apply, www.leadershiptidbits.com. And please tune in next week to hear from another amazing leader. Until then, have an awesome week.
Thank you, friends, for tuning in to another episode of Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson, where Taiwana speaks with leaders who share nuggets of wisdom that you can use in your personal and professional life. Follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Coach T. Wilson. Connect on LinkedIn or visit www.coachtwilson.com. And remember, in life, learn as much as you can, appreciate often, and lead fearlessly.